Committed to being.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Camden, Maine Select Board meeting for December 5th, 2023. We are broadcast live on Spectrum Cable TV channel 1303 and also on the town's YouTube channel. If you'd like to participate in the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand and our town manager will let you participate via Zoom. Before we have our public comment on non-agenda items, I'd like to request that we add an item to tonight's agenda. Let's add it during the action items, and that would be to vote for gender-neutral language in our charter and all our select board related documents. And the reason why I bring this up is we still see some documents that say select man, and this is the 21st century. And I think we should amend our documents to say select board or select board member.
Second, or did you?
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
I mean, we're not mandating that they just drop everything and start doing that, are we? Or-
We're authorizing Audra and Bill and Janice to go ahead and just change the language wherever they see it from select man to select board member or select men to select board.
Sure,
But that's something
yeah,
we can
I mean,
discuss.
Some of those are documents that are voted on by the whole town. I know Lincolnville, a couple of places have just gone through this thing of asking, and I think we maybe have in the past, asking voters to approve changing that wherever. Is that all you need from us? Do you need something from us, Audra, to?
I believe that the town attorneys talked about this, and because it's more of it's not like a substantive or policy change. It's terminology change. I was saying to Tom something simple like a resolve from the select board, especially when it's policy documents or something that we can change, to do so as we find them.
Okay.
And we can discuss this during the action item.
Oh,
if
no, that's
this
fine. Sorry.
Vote passes. Further discussion on adding this to tonight's agenda? All those in favor? 4-0. So that will be item D in action items. Next item on tonight's agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. Does anybody from the public wish to speak? Seeing none, approval of minutes for the November 8th and November 21st meetings.
I would move that we approve them.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Allison?
So I think with the discussion about the tannery redevelopment as open space, I said, and I know this is part of this is the AI stuff, ultimately there's no clear consensus on the future of the Tannery Park property, and it's suggested that a public vote may be the best way to decide its fate. I guess, kind of goes on and on. I think there was a consensus from us that we wanted to ask the public if they want to keep the property as open space. And so I guess I would like the minutes to reflect that there was a consensus from the board that we are at a point where we want to ask voters to approve keeping it as public space or, something to that. And it doesn't feel like the summary here really, it kind of just said, they all kind of expressed different opinions about workforce housing and this and that. And a public vote may be the best way to decide its fate. But I think what we decided was that we're going to ask a specific question.
I agree. I agree with you, Allison.
Mm-hmm. Like the result of this is supposed to be a warrant article that appears in June asking voters if they want to keep the property for open space or some wording that's similar.
Right. So you just want the minutes to reflect that there was consensus that you want us to work on that and have something ready for the ballot in June.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yep.
So do you need to amend your motion?
Yeah, sure. I will amend, I don't know how, I can't remember the process for that, but, so I would move that or we can approve as, with this one change, or how do you want me to word it?
That would be fine. Approve it with that one change.
Do I have a,
Make the motion, yes.
I would remove that we approve it with that one change.
I'll still second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you. Item 2 on tonight's agenda, item 3 on tonight's agenda is select board reports. Chris, would you like to go first?
I don't have anything to report.
Stephanie, anything? Or Allison, you want to go next?
Can you let Stephanie go first?
Stephanie, do you have anything tonight?
I do not.
I'll go ahead if you
Okay,
need a minute.
thanks.
I don't have a lot, but I would like to mention Camden lost on Saturday night one of our great citizens, Don Young, a lifelong citizen of the town. Don was 88 years old. He was my neighbor and my friend on Mount Patty Street and Blake Street. Don was retired from the Navy and retired from the Knox Woolen Mill. And we lost quite an amazing person and a very kind and good friend to me. That's all I have.
I attended the Library Board of Trustees meeting where they discussed the new trustees that we'll be voting on today. But one of the things that the library does is a lot of work recruiting. And it was a good reminder to me that, if you just sit and wait and just see who applies for all these committees, you don't always, we get a lot of good people, but the library does really good work reaching out and trying to recruit people. So they had a really good discussion about that. And I think they have 3 really great people that they're bringing in. The Conservation Commission, a little bit of a mix up with some of the people that are on. Some of the people that were appointed, or one person in particular, had already been contacted. She's not interested. So we're going to be bringing back some replacements based on that. And I guess that's it for substantive matters.
Okay, thank you. Town managers report. Audra?
All right, so last week I attended a meeting with the Public Works Wastewater Department and USDA Rural Development to discuss the remaining funds for the treatment plant upgrade. And that project, just to remind everyone, included the redevelopment of the entire treatment plant, replacing the force main that used to run from the C Street pump station to the Bayview Street pump station. And that went overland down C Street, Atlantic Avenue, and up Main Street to make that connection instead of across the harbor. And 2 pump stations, one at Cove Road and one on Washington Street. So we're gathering a list of, we have unspent funds, so we're gathering a list of projects and items to send to our project officer for their review so we can figure out, what's eligible for the remaining funds. And he reminded us a couple of times that we're sort of limited by what was scoped in the preliminary engineering report and what was also included in the environmental review. So it's really anything on the treatment plant property or anything that had to do with those other 3 projects. So there are some limitations to how those remaining funds can be spent. I've been looking into software that could help improve our budget process. So instead of focusing on reviewing each department's line item budgets, the review would instead focus on programs and services. And it's kind of hard to talk about the budget in terms of programs and services because often, the different services that we offer can span multiple line items in terms of personnel and materials and equipment, and even multiple cost centers in our budget. So the idea of this software is to transition from, the current sort of line item department-based review to more of a priority-based budgeting system, which I think could offer a much better opportunity for the budget committee to understand how funds are used across the town in terms of programs and services, and also providing input on these programs and services and what's working, what isn't, how are we allocating our resources, and is it to the things that are truly important to the town. So I'll have more information once we look into that a little bit more. On November 27th, Knowles Industrial Services began working on the repointing of the Montgomery Dam sluiceway. So that work is going really well. They're a week ahead of when they were originally scheduled to be in, and their intention was to begin installing the new gate to the dam. However, because we've had so much water and now we have snow and we're going to have snow melt pretty soon, we just have, a lot of water flowing through the entire watershed. So we're not able to draw everything down to the level in order to install the gate. So we're really going to have to wait until the dry season to be able to do that. So it's likely that that won't happen until the fall. Until the dry season, which is a little bit later into the summer. And that's, pretty common with work on dams. It really is sort of dependent on weather conditions. And when you have, a lot of water, it's really difficult to get everything you need to get it in order to be able to do work on them. There are ways that you can do work on areas like this, but it just is way beyond the cost of what we have available.
Depending on when I saw them working today, what I understood a little bit more was that if it were the summer, they would be able to get in the water some, where there's just a little bit, but it's just too cold for them to have people waiting and water. Is that?
If we get a dry spell, will they give it a try, or they're just going to wait till August?
They just won't be able to I don't think it's going to get down to where it needs to be anytime soon. It's just too cold.
So will we have the same issue? Will we have the same issues that people complain about
For the
coming
summer,
again,
likely.
Third year,
Yep, likely.
instead of getting it done this year.
We can't, because we can't draw it down enough to be able to do it.
It was really low. If you looked at it, it was really low.
Yeah.
It's not going to get much lower than that. It's just a very difficult project to get done because you have to be in the water there are reasons why some of this hasn't happened before. It's hard.
Yeah, there's technical challenges. So with the police department, they're involved in investigating an increased number of retail thefts from stores during the month. And this is something that, is happening not just all over the state, but all over the country. So it's pretty well organized thefts involving several suspects working together in town. So they're actively investigating it and have suspects for each case that they're involved in. They've also are experiencing a pretty large increase in freedom of information requests. So the requests are becoming increasingly more frequent and complex and require a great deal of staff time. And so our lieutenant has been working on several of these in consultation with the town attorney. Also, the department has been involved in a number of mental health related cases working with VOA. So they're making sure that they're doing follow-ups and home visits to offer services to some of the individuals that they're working with. So Officers Redinger and Duke are scheduled for academy orientation and the physical assessment testing for December 18th at the Police Academy. And they're going to attend the 18-week basic law enforcement training program, which starts in mid-January. So during that period of time, we'll be down 2 officers while they're getting their qualifications. And the police department would also like to remind anybody out there that they have a Sand for Seniors program. So if you're somebody who is unable to get a bucket of sand or sand your walkway, please contact Jeff Sukforth at the police department, and they can arrange to have an officer come by, drop off the bucket, and also spread sand. And while we're mentioning that, Camden also has a Good Morning Camden and Rockport program to call households where maybe the person is homebound and they need just somebody to check in with them. And that's my updates.
Thanks, Audra. Item 5 on tonight's agenda is public hearings. Application of Albatross at 115 Elm Street, formerly Gypsy Rose Tavern, for a new Class 1 restaurant liquor license to serve malt, wine, and spirits beverages on premises. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of Albatross? Would you like to come forward? If you don't mind, just, yes, please, and turn, the microphone's on, just state your name and residency and tell us a little bit about your restaurant if you'd like.
Sure. I'm Jeffrey Harris. I live in Owl's Head. And our restaurant's Albatross. It'll be a multicultural tapas style approach with small plates, doing a full service bar with limited wine and beer.
Thanks, Jeff. Board, any questions? Any motions?
Move that we approve it.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for coming. Good luck with the enterprise. Item 6 on tonight's agenda is new victualler licenses. First for Albatross at 115 Elm Street. We don't need you to come forward necessarily twice. Thank you. And for Cafe Louise at 50 Elm Street. Anybody representing that establishment tonight? Okay. Board, any questions about the applications?
No question.
I would move that we approve it.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you.
Are we supposed to make her say it verbally when she's on?
Sure. Stephanie, from now on,
Lectured
if you
about
could.
that a bunch
I didn't-
before.
Allison's reminding me that if you could just say
A
aye.
roll call, whatever.
I will.
Okay. Item 6B is a memorandum of understanding with the Curtis Island Lighthouse Foundation. Audra, could you give us a little background on this?
Yes, a few of us have been working with volunteers, one who you'll hear from shortly, Michael Scaling, who's done a lot of volunteer work with Patricia Scaling for the Historic Resources Committee. They've been working on putting together a foundation to help with fundraising and planning work for Curtis Island and a series of other things that were really spurned by the transition in management of the lighthouse, the island, from the conovers to whatever comes into the future, and recognizing that during this transition period, this is a really good time to take stock of the facilities out there, do a big project to get everything up to a standard where it's in really good condition. And Michael is going to give a presentation on the foundation and Curtis Island and partnership moving forward between the foundation and the town. Is that a good introduction, or did I miss anything?
No, it's good. Well, thank you, Audra. And Select Board, I'm glad to be here. I've been kind of thinking about the island and doing different projects for quite a long time. And it's really nice to be here tonight. So what I'm going to do is talk about the foundation that we've established to raise funds to help the town. The second thing will be to show kind of where is the island right now. So I'm going to kind of jump back in history a little and then bring it all the way forward to where we are. And then at the end, we'll look at the memorandum of understanding that we've drafted. And our goal is that you would agree to it, and we'll talk toward the end of my presentation about that. But if you have questions as we move, feel free to ask, and I will tell you I'm going to be covering that in a moment if so. So anyway, so I've been involved with the island since probably 2015 or 2016, and that was when my spouse, my wife Pat, has been in the Historic Resources Committee, the Camden Historic Resources Committee, and I've been a volunteer on that for all this time. and really became aware of the lighthouse and what's needed and what the conditions are, and fighting through getting some money and then being disappointed that we can't spend it because we found other problems or the contractor backed out. So I'm going to tell you a little story about that as we go. So the foundation was formed this year. We incorporated in Maine as a nonprofit corporation, and we received IRS recognition for our 501c3 status. And before that, we had done a lot of, should we stay with the town and run it through the town business, or should we do it separate? And all the consulting that we had and advisors that we've had recommended separating it out and keeping the foundation kind of clear from the town. But this is kind of the first time we're coming together to say, how do we tie back together in terms of where we're going forward?
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Can people see the PowerPoint? Like, I know Stephanie says that she can't. It just seems like it might add to the, I don't know if that means that the YouTube isn't also not going to have it, or. Oh, okay.
Stephanie, it's on YouTube. The PowerPoint is.
Maybe, okay, so if somebody wanted to see it and they're on Zoom, they could turn on YouTube and look at it. Sorry, it makes it easier to understand.
It's on Zoom now.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, so I want to do a couple of introductions. So you've met me. John Healy is a friend of the Curtis Island, and he's helping out. He's on the board. Sam Appleton is on our board. Sam's not here tonight. And we're working with Philip Conkling, a couple of advisors, Philip Conkling and Jack Sanford. And Philip has done, you probably know him or know of him, but he's done a lot with the Island Institute, the Rockport Library, the Rockport Transportation Museum. So we've been working with Philip. That really provides a lot of good help and ideas. And Jack Sanford has helped on legal issues and also helped us in preparing, some of the documents that we have, our bylaws and other documents. So our mission is to preserve, restore, and protect Curtis Island Light Station for current and future generations. So it's pretty broadly, we protect it and we make sure it's there for the long haul. And we're thinking the next 100 years. The vision, Curtis Island Light Station our vision is that it's historically restored to the early 1900s, sometime early, where these houses and buildings that are there now were in existence and when they were a little newer. But that's what we're shooting for. That it's safeguarded for the next 100 years by a dedicated community of volunteers, donors, and town officials, while serving as an educational and resource for the community. It's just such a wonderful place, and many of you have probably been on it, but it's pretty incredible. You go out there and you get off your boat and figure how to get up the bank, and once you're there, you could be 500 miles out in the ocean. It's just so spectacular. So why did we form? And we formed to help the town with systematic and full restoration for the next 100 years. And I want to say systematic, instead of going after shingles blew off, let's fix them. Paint's bubbling, let's repaint that. Let's get down to the basics. What is going on with the building? And it faces, it's pretty extreme conditions. There's no heat in it. And it's a tough old building, but it's been there 138 years. And it's in remarkable structural condition. Visually, it needs some work, and I'll talk about that. And so what we're going for tonight, it's probably the major item in the memorandum of understanding, is that we commission an engineering architectural firm to look at the current conditions and why are they where they are, and what needs to be done to historically restore them. And so that's the assessment, and the preservation plan is the latter part of that, where what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and make sure it's done in historically sensitive way. So some brief history. So Camden, as you know, was incorporated in 1791. 1820, Maine became a state. In 1833, Negro Island was purchased for $400. 1834, Congress approved the building of a light station for $4,500. And I'm sorry it's going to cost more than that to fix it, as you well know. So Andrew Jackson was president. In 1835, the Keeper's House and the light tower were built. In 1836, there was the first light keeper, Henry Bowers. And so here's an early painting of Negro Island Lighthouse, 1849. And Allison found that in the local Camden Rockport Historic Society. I guess you were looking through things, and it's a fabulous painting. It's the only one we have that's built just a few years after it was built, and showing it from the water. We have some later pictures from the land, but it's the one I found.
1840, it says 1949 there, but yeah, 18.
Oh, yeah, it should be 18.
I think that one is from
1849.
John Locke, from his journal.
I'm sorry?
That first history book of Camden, John Locke.
Mhm.
His original journal of all his illustrations from when he was a teenager is at the Historical Society. So I think that is who did that.
So you're saying this is Locke. Maybe I flipped it.
I think
Okay.
so. I may have sent
Yeah.
you a flurry of things and it got all tangled up, but you should come and see it in person.
We are. So this is the first lighthouse, one you just saw pictured from the water, made of rubble stone. It lasted for about 60 years, and then it was completely torn down. So the original lightkeeper's house was replaced after 53 years and replaced in 1889. The original light tower was replaced after 60 years and replaced in 1896. So, and they put in a new 1,000-pound fog bell that you can see in this picture. And there's an interesting side story that I won't go into, but we've discovered where it is. It's not the one down on the dock. It's in Stonington, and it's at their historic society. So we're going to send a posse over there some night. Now we're going to talk and see if we can't really get that back and get it back on the island. So what they built was an all-new design, and you can see I found these architectural drawings, and that's stud by stud, and it's very accurate from what I've seen digging into it. And the local newspaper at the time said, "It's a modern and pleasing style of architecture and very convenient. Contains 6 large, airy, and well-lighted rooms, beside numerous closets and halls, and every floor in the house is hard pine, and the whole house is built in the most thorough manner and the best materials." And that's been reinforced in several visits we've had from the State Department or the State Historic Preservation Commission. And the bones are great. There are a few little problems, but the structure is actually terrific. And so the second beginning really happened when these were built in 1886. And at that time, they were all new structures. The house, the barn, there's a barn that needs some work. There's an oil shed. And what's not there is a boathouse, a boat ramp, and a dock. And that's something we need to pay attention to in terms of how do people get there in a bit easier way than they have been. There's a picture of the boathouse, which is pretty interesting. It sits right there. It has a chute that goes out, I don't know, about 100 feet into deep water. And I'm not sure when it was destroyed or went out with the ocean, high tides, but I think it was probably by the mid 1950s. So the great news, the 4 remaining structures are much as they were. They haven't been changed, just minor changes. Some changes you'll see, really just minor changes. So from a historic preservation perspective, they're really terrific condition. So these are the same. And so in 2023, this year, it has strong bones. The light station looks beautiful and continues to be a guiding light into Camden Harbor. This is a picture I took. Let's see, go back. This one was pictured in 2020. Did a number on it that caused some pretty deep damage. You can see the roof patch. Here, the gutter, some of the gutters were torn out, and the fascia board was split. And so there's a lot of small areas, but the roof has suffered a lot of damage. There's another picture of it. The light station, you'll see paint on the front that's blown off. That's going to need to be redone. But overall, I think the light tower is in pretty good shape. It'll need some masonry work, but it's in good shape. So on closer inspection today, this is the ceiling. If you've been there and up the stairways, this is at the top of the stairways, just under where the water came through the roof. And also, it's just a tough environment because there's no heat in the house. It's closed up in the winter. You get moisture, you get dry, you get moisture and dry. So it's always that cycle and the freezing and thawing. So again, on closer inspection, we were going to be painting last summer. We had money to paint, and this summer, not this recent summer, the one before. And long story short, we found dry rot in one of the corners, and it was the worst corner. But since then, we've looked at other spots, and it looks to be good. We won't know for sure, but until we move forward in the restoration, but it looks to be good. And what's been done, I looked at all the old reports to find out when were roofs replaced. And so there was a new roof in 1889, another new roof in, I think, 2005, and now we're due for new roofs again. And it's just tough environment there. In 1990, all the structures, during the 90s, the Conover family all the time they're going to do this side of the house this year, this side next year, and 2 or 3 inside rooms. So it was always on a cycle. And then some years they would do the whole thing. I think in one of the last times in 2010, the Coast Guard helped out. They sent a group over from Rockland, and they pretty much got most of the house stripped and redone. So there's been a huge, community involvement. There's huge opportunities for community involvement going forward. This picture of Dee Dee, it was on the town report, and the Historic Resources Committee received a grant for $10,000 to restore all the window sashes. That was the area that needed immediate fix. So we got the grant. We had someone that pulled them off and took them home for the winter, restored them all. And so right now we have window sashes that are in pretty decent shape. They'll need to be repainted, but they're in good shape. Again, a lot of the verbiage here is, how the town's been involved. But so we took the painting funds and applied it toward asbestos removal in the basement. All the pipes were covered with asbestos. So asbestos is all gone. And so that money was put to good use. And lead paint in the basement and a few other places and on the oil shed was stripped off. There's still a need for lead paint evaluation, and that'll come kind of later, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. So anyway, we've done temporary patches on the roof. We were going to do the whole roof. And it doesn't make sense just to put new shingles on. It really has to be taken off because all the pictures going back for 30 years, the shingles often come off in that same spot. So they're either punky boards underneath or something's, or they've been so hammered with nails that they're not holding the nails. So the plan is at some point is to get all the roofing off and put new boards where needed. And
What's that 2020 historic buildings condition assessment
oh,
by Gartling?
Gartling Dorsky did
I don't know if I've seen that. Was that specific to Curtis Island
yeah.
buildings?
So
Yeah.
the Historic Resources Committee asked that we have an assessment done, and it's needed for grants, especially. So they did an assessment, but it wasn't a structural assessment. It was kind of a visual, what you see on the surface. And so they outlined all the, several pages of things that could be done, and we've tackled some of them, but it needs a structural assessment, and it needs someone to look at the paint. It needs someone to, and so we found an organization that did the architectural work on Burnt Coat Harbor. They're doing it on the Olson House. They've done several other lighthouses, and their only focus is on historic structures. So we're hoping, and this is kind of what's in the memorandum of agreement, that we bring them in next spring to do the assessment. And that will leave us, I'm jumping ahead a bit, but that will leave us with plans, and we'll know what the next steps are and how much it's going to cost. And when I talk with people now, it's like, how much is this going to cost? Well, I don't know. I mean, is it going to be $500,000 or how much? And so we're better to wait. And this assessment will give us the costs, plus it'll give us documents that'll be very easy to use with contractors when you go out for bid. Okay. And so the money to fix the roof this year, I think you budgeted $55,000, which we thought was the right amount. And it came back that it was more than 100,000. And I'm not sure if it's because they didn't include all the fascia boards and gutters, which I thought, anyway, it's going to take more than that, apparently. So there's been a kind of a permanent, quote, patch done on it. It's not just the paper that you saw there, but their shingles, the same type of shingles that are on it have been replaced. This historic, so what's needed to be done first? So in the spring of 2024, having this historic and architectural and preservation plan done will give us the basic documentation we need to go to donors. We need to go for grants and for the town to see what the costs are. So we want to partner to complete the assessment and begin the strategic and planful approach. And it's the memorandum of understanding between the town and the Curtis Island Light Foundation. So that's kind of what I have here. I have the plan. We can go over it, but I assume you've read it. If not, I'd be glad to highlight some items. And just for the community that's here, the town owns all of the structures. The town is responsible ultimately for the repair and upkeep and keeping them to a historic standard. And what we want to do is kind of fast forward this so it's not a piecemeal approach. And by generating and gifts and grants, hopefully we can help the town out, and with the town's continued, donation and support, we can get all this stuff done in the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. And that would be the goal. The faster we do it, the less further damage is going to be. So it's now open for questions, and I'd be glad to read these. I'll read I guess, one of them here. To accomplish the goal, and that's the restoration, the historic restoration. To accomplish that, we're asking the town to contribute $25,000, and the foundation will contribute $25,000 to pay for this fundamental and absolutely basic work that we have to do. So
That's for the conditions assessment?
yes, that's the conditions assessment and the historic preservation plan.
And Michael, how'd you come up with that number, $50,000?
I've applied for a grant for half that amount. And I had the Historic Building Architects LLC, the company that did the work on Swans Island and Olson House and other places in Maine, that they provided a proposal for us, and we came. That's what I'm basing the numbers on.
So their proposal was a $50,000 proposal?
Yeah. I reread it today. It's 40 with some add-ons, but I think there are things that we would want to do. So I'm saying it'll be probably closer to 50. And so what we want the town to do is to take the money that wasn't spent on the roof, that's already budgeted, it's already in the budget, and use some of those funds to provide this money for this endeavor.
Could we see that proposal?
Oh, sure. I don't have it
Sure.
with me, but
Sure.
I'm glad to get you copies
Yeah.
of it.
If you would email it to us, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I should be hearing from the Maine Lighthouse Trust, and that's the group, it's a foundation that collects money from license plate, lighthouse license plates. So they get for every one, they get, I don't know, $10 or $15. And then that money is distributed through this organization, through the Lighthouse Trust. And they called me and said, do you have a need for any of our money this year? So I'm feeling positive about it, but I should know in another month if we get that 25,000.
Sure.
And if we don't, I think we're prepared. I'll speak for the board, but to raise the other money, and we have been raising money prior to really going full bore to the public with this. But there have been several people who have given significant dollars to help us here.
Allison?
So I guess I was hearing about the roof too. It's your opinion that we can hold off on doing more to the roof and use those funds
Yeah.
for something. Now,
Well, the roof has been patched with shingles.
Okay.
And I
Right.
haven't heard how this last sort of a smaller storm hit it, but I haven't heard from anyone that their shingles off. It's short of a huge thing that rips part of the roof off. I think
Yeah.
we're good.
and so the idea of this is that it's going to generate a report that's probably going to say, in your opinion, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work to be done.
It could be. I mean, I think right from the outset, I think it needs all fresh wood on the outside, because there's a lot of pieces of rot, and this assessment will determine, hey, let's take all the clapboards off this side, but we can leave this side because they're a little more stable. I think our board's feeling at this point is, I think a fresh start on the outside wood, corner boards, soffits, it would really pull it back to what it was
Sure.
like historically.
We might be getting a little deep, but we'd
Yeah,
wait for
right.
the assessment on
But-
this.
Oh, an assessment.
So I guess
Yeah.
more what I'm asking is, are you thinking that the foundation, if we contribute to this conditions assessment, and is that laying the foundation to allow the private fundraising and grant seeking to really happen that would What percentage of the total cost do you think would be
I'd
raised?
like to see 50/50. I mean, that's me personally. But, and how you do that, whether you do it through grants or in kind or, other ways. That's just me talking and it's not part of this discussion
Yeah,
at this point. But we know there are grants out there and having the conditions report will be a fundamental piece for that. I mean, it'll just open a lot of doors to, for funding.
and now would that detail something like good, better, best? Or I guess what I'm a little bit nervous about is getting into a situation where we have a report that says we need to do $500,000 worth of work at Curtis Island, and then there's an expectation that the town then has to spend, we get ourselves on a trajectory of maintaining maybe a standard that isn't possible, or,
Well, I think what we do is we get the conditions assessment and then we sit down again and we talk about it, because then we'll have the facts in front of us. And the board, I'm sure, will entertain sitting down and talking and see what we can come up with. And in this period between now and then, which I suspect if they can do it in late March, which is questionable, but if they can do it late March, maybe we'd have the report back, or at least a temporary preliminary report back. And we'd have an idea of, where things are. But if we don't do anything, I mean, part of the problem is that there haven't been huge capital investments, all, from 1896, it's been, fix this and fix that. And some of these things have reached probably the end of their useful life. But like I said, the core of the building is in great condition.
I mean,
We have our codes and planning officer, Jeremy Martin. Jeremy, you had something?
Well, I think the first thing I was going to say is your question, Allison, about the roof. We did do a roof repair this spring or this fall. So that's taken care of and pretty, I think, solid for moving forward. I've been out on the island. I've looked at the building. I've gone through it with Mike. I think ultimately this is what needs to happen to kind of, again, from the foundation's perspective, to get their fundraising moving, and from our perspective, kind of capital planning for what needs to happen to this building. I mean, this is a pretty treasured resource, and we do have an obligation when the Coast Guard handed it over us to maintain it. And this, this memorandum of understanding, it kind of creates that initial framework or foundation for a partnership, if you will. It doesn't, cede to the foundation any rights or responsibilities that aren't really the town's. So we forever will be the ones that have the rights and responsibility for the town or for the property. It just really gets us to that place where we can apply for grants, in a much more positive way. I think it's the work Mike's been doing it's been phenomenal. And I've been working with him on this the last couple of months only. But it is really, the Lighthouse Foundation that does the license plate piece, and then this other grant to help with the assessment is really, hats off to Mike for taking it on. I'm now, again, working with the foundation and trying to get this moving forward. And there are grants that we can apply for that the foundation can't apply for. Because of the type of grants. So I think this really sets us up for good place moving forward. And then once we get that assessment done, which is needed, then we can, again, like Mike said, sit down with the foundation and kind of, that was the intent of this agreement and understanding. I mean, staff reviewed it and Bill reviewed it as well. And we kind of, I think we scaled it back to make sure that really what this is to get, lay the groundwork for something that can, be successful and restore appropriately and with the best use of people's resources and the foundation's resources, tax dollars, and hopefully grant funds is the intent. So I'm hopeful. I think it's a good start to hopefully a good relationship. But I think it does lay the foundation for getting this assessment done. I'm hopeful on this, to be honest with you. I had never been out to the island. been around it many, many, many times, but I've never walked on it. And what a resource we have there. It is incumbent upon us to try to figure out a way to maintain it. And I applaud these folks from the town to step up and try to assist in that effort. Those are my comments, Tom.
Thanks, Jeremy.
One
Yep.
other point is if we're asking some people for a lot of money, and hopefully we find them, that they want to see the town is bought into this. They want to see the town as a partner. So that's one of the things we know about fundraising. And that's one of the things where we have to figure out how does that partnership work, and what's cash, what's in kind, what's grants. But that's what has to be done. So I'm, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Michael. We are pretty long on time here, but I would like to, Stephanie, Chris, do you have any questions or comments?
The only question I have is what is left in the budget compared to what the roof job was? I.e., how easy is it to come up with the $25,000? Maybe it's just a slam dunk because we didn't spend it. It's there.
I think
And the other piece on that is that, I really appreciate we've got a group of citizens in town that want to help the town do something that's already the town's responsibility to maintain something. It's similar to what we had a couple of months ago, where we had people in town that want to provide help to maintain something. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't just welcome it and say, thank you very much.
So we have about $30,000 remaining.
Thank you. Good. Stephanie?
So I echo Chris's thoughts. My only other thoughts are just the MOU. I'm not contesting or anything like that. Just the control going forward and the responsibility split of what is going to be the town's responsibility and what's going to be the foundation's responsibility. I'm not 100% sure about what that's going to look like. I don't want to rush into anything, not knowing, if somebody else takes over Mike and they come in and they just want to railroad the whole thing and take complete control, and then they use this MOU as well, you guys signed it, and you signed it for the foundation, not for me. That would be I think right now, handing over that complete, that's just kind of my thought process of, we are giving this to the foundation, not to Mike. I trust Mike and completely. Those are my thoughts. So Jeremy wants to talk.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, Jeremy's jumping out of his shoes. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, hopefully not, but no, it's a very good point, Steph, and I appreciate it. They had drafted an MOU previously. Audra and I reviewed it with some of the board. We had some initial comments, and then Bill Kelly and I spent some time on it. And we had your same interest and your same intent there in mind. And we tweaked the agreement or under the memo of understanding considerably, based really, I think, on what you're saying, and sent it back to the board of the foundation, and they understood. And I let Mike speak to it if he wants, but they understood and they had no issues with the changes that we made, because we wanted to make sure exactly what you said, Steph. We agree with you, and that's, our intent is to protect the town on this and the resource that we have on the island. So we understand. And we're confident that this MOU gets us to that point and make sure we're in control and gets us to get this assessment done. And then it says, I'm going to spend some staff time on it, which is fine. And I've got some time to do that. But once this assessment's done, we'll regroup and then we'll draft some other agreement as necessary based on the town's best interests and what the foundation's trying to do.
So just to part B,
Yep.
If I could have a few more minutes. Once we move into what needs to be done and at what level things will be repaired to, is it your understanding, Mike or Jeremy, that would be the foundation, or would it be recommendations? Who would kind of be making that choice? Because
I guess I could speak to that a little. I mean, we'll get the assessment back, and town staff will review it, the foundation will review it, and then ultimately, I think you guys will review it as well. I mean, we're going to have to. There's obviously going to need to be some funds allocated to this. We don't know what that's going to mean yet, or what priorities are going to have to be set on timing and all that. But so it'll be brought to you. Staff's not going to make, I think, decisions on this stuff without having budget item allocated to it. So I'm pretty confident that I think that's the answer. Audra, I would assume you agree there, and same with Mike.
Yeah, I would say that this piece of work will form the basis of, the new agreement, as well as figuring out what everybody's fundraising obligations are. And there's going to be back and forth between the town and the foundation about what ultimately is agreed upon for the scope of work that we're all moving forward with.
Yeah, we can't get to that until this assessment's done.
Allison, and then I'm going to open it up if anybody else has a question or comment.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I'd also say for the couple of years now, there's been extensive discussion about this in the Historic Resources Committee meetings. You can watch hours and hours on YouTube of discussion and reporting back. And I mean, I personally feel I would hand you, Mike, over the keys right now to say you're in charge of everything. And I would want to make sure that I'm really curious what got taken out of this agreement. If there was something that you wanted that they took out, because I do think it's really, and I know everybody's getting along. It sounds like a great agreement has been reached, but I do think it's really important that that you and however the foundation is organized, that you do have sort of complete access and the ability to do what you need to do and not be slowed down too much by whatever is going on with somebody at the town that might control something. Because I think we have an opportunity right now where just extraordinarily knowledgeable people are willing to put a lot of effort in. And I mean, I would like, anytime you want to go out and with a key and be in there, I feel like we should be making that very possible. So I feel very comfortable with this and grateful for all the work that you guys have put in. It's really extraordinary.
Well, thank you. And the board is very comfortable with where we are. And it caused me to kind of rethink, of course, we need to know what are the costs, what are the real costs going to be. And then another thing is a lot of volunteers, and I haven't talked about a lot of the different aspects of this, but one is to really develop an active volunteer network, whether they're volunteering money or carpentry skills or painting skills or forestry skills. So there's a lot of pieces to this. There's a historic part too. What is the real history? I mean, we've done, the Historic Resources Committee has done some work already on that and is writing a history of it. And there's always information to be added in. Anyway, I'll quit now, but it's a beautiful place, and we're looking forward to working with you all.
Does anybody here tonight have any questions or comments? Brief, I hope.
Who actually owns the island?
Sir, if you'd like to speak, you have to come, introduce yourself and your residency, please.
I'm Silvio Calabi. I'm here for the library in a few minutes, but I just had a question. The town owns the structures now. Who actually owns the island? The town as well. And did the federal government deed that over to the town?
The federal government deeded over 3 of the buildings, not the light tower, in 96, and then in 1976. the town got everything except the light tower. The Coast Guard held on to the light tower until 1993, I believe. And so now the town has it all.
Thank you. As somebody who sails into the harbor every few days all summer long, I think it's really important to fix up the lighthouse and the keeper's house. I mean, this is the gateway to Camden, the jewel of the Midcoast. Every sailor worldwide knows Camden. And the first time you sail into our harbor, you see this patchwork on the roof and the paint peeling off the building. It doesn't look good. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Silvio. Board, anything else? Board, anything else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the Curtis, what's it called? The Curtis Island Foundation, the Curtis Island Lighthouse Foundation.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
In favor?
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0. Item 6C on tonight's agenda is the confirmation of 3 new library board trustees. Silvio.
This is yours.
Let's see. Just this. Well, are you going to use this?
I'll read off it. All right, well, as I said, I'm here to ask the town, the select board, to confirm the 3 new trustees that the library has invited to join our board. They are Marissa Baskin, Kendra Watkins, and Erin Donovan. You should have their CVs in front of you. We have an application form on the library website for prospective trustees. It's fairly complete. We're very interested, of course, in why people want to become trustees. I'm happy to say that so far we have had nobody who has, no one has come to us yet with their hair on fire, asking that books be, or demanding that certain books be banned or burned. Everyone has approached us, I think, in the proper spirit, and that's certainly true for these 3 ladies. They've been interviewed at some length by the Personnel Committee, and then the Personnel Committee makes recommendations to the entire board. The board then votes on them, and then Nikki, our director, submits the names to you, as you well know, and I'm simply here to ask you to confirm their appointments. If you have any questions about them, I've only met them the once during the interview, but they seem to have the best interests of the library and the town at heart. I should also add, I think, that in the 6 years I've been on the board, the nature of the board has changed dramatically. When I joined 6 years ago, I think I was one of the youngest trustees. Today, I'm one of the oldest trustees. And this is because we've made a conscious effort to bring in much younger people who have children in the school system and who use the library in a different way than we older retirees do. And it has changed the nature of the board tremendously. Hasn't really changed the nature of the library, but I think we're all quite happy with the nature of the library. But there's a new spirit of energy on the board of trustees, and I think these 3 ladies will contribute significantly to that.
Thank you, Silvio. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Stephanie?
Thank you so much for showing up tonight and speaking to us and speaking for your board. I wholeheartedly throw my support behind all your nominations and agree with you very much about the nominations. And I really appreciate knowing the process that you all go through to get to this point. I know I've known the process, but to have you here to explain it to everybody is very helpful. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I should add that I'm here on a personal level as well, because having been on the board now for 6 years, I'm term limiting out. So I'm here to say goodbye, but I'm here to say thank you very much for your support over these 6 years, and long may it continue.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
I missed that part.
Thank you.
Gosh, you've done a lot, Silvio. Thank you for,
It's been a pleasure.
you've done a really great
I'll
job.
miss it.
Thank you.
I have a dumb
Chris?
question then. Why do we have term limits? If we've got people that are wanting to continue.
They decide that. They do their bylaws and then they come to
Wow.
us for approval, so.
It's part of our charter. A trustee is allowed to serve 2 consecutive 3-year terms. If toward the end of the 2 terms, and this was in my case, a trustee is elected to an officer position. I've been the president of the board for much of the time I've been on the board. Then you're allowed to continue to close out the full year of the term you were elected to as an officer. So I really will have been on, I think, for 6.5 years.
Thank you for doing that.
It's been a pleasure.
And you can get back on after how long of being?
You have to take a year off
Okay.
to cool down, and then
Well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I would move that we approve or confirm the nominations of the Library Board of Trustees for all 3 applicants.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Silvio. Item 6D is the agenda item we added, which is to change our charter and all select board related documents to be gender neutral, specifically removing any place where it says select man or select men in favor of select board or select board members. Any discussion?
So moved.
It sounds like a good thing to do to me.
Stephanie?
I'll second that.
I think the charter already, they really combed through that. Hopefully there's none of that left in there,
Yeah.
but lots of different documents. I've seen it scattered through, so.
Any questions or comments from anybody in attendance tonight? So we have a motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
Don't
Thank you.
tempt me, Tom.
Okay, good. That's a long time coming, like 100 years coming. All right, discussion items. 7A, Snowbowl update. Beth, thank you.
Plug in here.
So I can get this out.
Got it?
There we go.
And I give you all hard copies just in case.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you, Holly.
In case. And yours?
Thank you.
I'll
Do you
take-
have this
I'll take them
electronically
first.
so it can be shared with Stephanie?
Yes.
Is this electronically so it can be shared with Stephanie?
Yes, yeah, I'm giving it and everything. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you for loading. It is a very big file. Okay, so what do I? Janice is going. Oh, Janice needs this?
No,
Oh.
she's going.
Oh,
Okay, I'll let her. Hold it right up to thumb drive.
do you need to tell it to be a slideshow?
You might have to. This mouse
Do we have any extra copies for people in the audience?
Do you have extra?
I only have one.
I mean, it's going to show on the thing. I think they just brought this in case it
It
was
will.
a technology disaster.
What's new?
It was working.
I know, I don't understand.
Did that thing pop out? No.
This always happens. If you just set it up to mirror the display, so the same thing is on both things, it would.
It's not that, I just can't get this. I think it's this left.
I can see your mouse moving up there.
Yeah, I don't know, it just isn't showing up on the screen.
Isn't there something in here that you say? Do you need settings?
Yeah. Oh, is that it? What's that there?
Something's happening. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
and then hit this?
Yeah, try that.
No?
I'll try again. Let's see if we can just make it so there's.
Down here? It's thinking. Hit that?
Go to, display settings here. Optimize for compatibility.
What about these things?
I think if we go into the computer settings, like the
Settings?
preferences, display. Yeah.
Yep.
And then multiple displays. Let's turn off.
It just worked.
Maybe click on identifying or go to 2.
Can we run it from there? Don't you have to tell it to do a slideshow down here?
Yeah, you could try starting a slideshow.
Right here? Start
From
from
beginning.
beginning? There. Okay. Wow. Shoot, I thought that's what I thought at the beginning, but I didn't do it.
We need to come in on our day off and practice that. That happens every time.
Okay, go ahead, Beth, please.
Hi, everyone. I was asked to come in and give an update on the Snowbowl. And to start off, I guess I'll give you a bit of good news. We're started snowmaking today with the lower 20-degree temperatures. So all the guns on the first phase of the mountain are currently running and making some really good snow.
You can show them a picture of it.
Oh, now what? Do I just hit this next button? Yeah, there, they're making snow. And that's the natural snow that we got from the other nights, which is still stuck around. It's beautiful, sticky snow. So I know the microphone's here, that you all heard about one of our modular buildings being deemed uninhabitable this winter. So that is forcing me to come and kind of give you this presentation at this point. So it's time to stop kicking the can down the road. Losing that modular has definitely made it very obvious that we need to do something out there with our aging infrastructure and our lodge and the growing pains that we have with the current lodge and the facility. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. If you guys have questions along the way, I'd appreciate just, letting me know. So our existing infrastructure, the A-frame was built in 1969 after the outing club had a lodge that was destroyed by fire in 68. And so the outing club decided quickly and through great efforts, came up with the existing A-frame lodge, and we've been in there ever since. I'm going to show you some photos of what we are dealing with inside and outside. This is what our inside the main section of the lodge is looking like. Those big steel kind of horns looking things are our new geothermal air ducts where we get our heat and our cooling. That's an interesting addition, but you can also see in the next slide how we have some damage. That's from over the years, water getting in. The picture of the red chimney, which is an actual lift tower that was repurposed to be a chimney to go with the aesthetics of a ski lodge. But a lot over the years, a lot of water and melting and other things have come through and caused damage. During the September 16th tropical cyclone Lee, we lost several shingles on the roof, and now have some scheduled work due to insurance. So they're going to come in and re-roof. We're meeting Wednesday with Horch. They've given us that estimate, and then hopefully we have a time frame on when they're going to get that project done for us in the next week or so. They're also doing some trim that they've noticed with some rot.
Is that going to be an insurance thing?
Yep. We have a $2,500 deductible, but we're getting a new roof and some trim work from that windstorm. So as you can see in these photos, you're seeing some more of where the water came in on the tiles over there in our new kitchen scramble. You can see how packed and stacked our kitchen area is for our vendor, Jason. You know, when this facility was built, I don't think they ever really planned on having a kitchen in there. And if they did, it wasn't to the standard that we need now. So the space is very small. Let's see, where are we going here? This is the first floor of the basement level, which houses our patrol base, as well as our public locker room. And then there's bathrooms on that far back wall. So now you're seeing is our maintenance building in the first slide is the big gray building. And that was built in 2004 or 2003, I'm sorry. And that houses all of our equipment. It also is a shop for them to do, a workshop for them to do welding and other different projects that they do for all of our equipment and such. It does not have any running water or restroom facilities in that building. So then the next the same photo, you see the modular building there. We have had it tested so that we know for sure that there's no asbestos in there. And we did get a call at 5 o'clock before coming here that it is free and negative of all of that. So we can demolish it at this point and get it moved because we do have plans to move a building in its stead. This is the other modular building.
Let's pause there. You have
Okay.
you have plans to move another building to that location?
Yeah, so we have, let me see if I can find that picture. This red building right here
Okay. Yep.
was purchased to house our tubes for the tubing hill. And we have come up with an alternative to that for if and when we're able to open the tubing hill. So that building is going to move over to the existing footprint of the one that is leaving.
Okay.
As well as a storage bin, like a pod for outdoor cold storage for the race department.
Is that, maybe it's just the angle?
Yeah, it's a weird angle.
What
size is it? Do we know?
It's tiny.
Is it going to replace?
12 by
function?
16. It is not going to completely.
Like side country is going to be in that?
But I haven't gone to side country yet. This is just for the alpine race
Oh,
team.
okay.
Training where they can boot up,
Okay.
wax skis, and then the pod will give them outdoor storage for their skis and equipment.
And you're thinking the tubing hill might not open?
Well, we hope to open it every year.
Okay.
There is a facility, there's a place where we can store tubes where there's a little building up there that we can have outdoor storage for that. Up the hill. All right, let me go back. So this is the other modular that was New to the Snowbowl, in 2014, when the new lodge was not built. It was brought in to take care of some of our programming and our services. So our ticket area moved into this building, as well as our rental fleet and our rental shop. So now with moving things around, Side Country Sports is going to take over this ticketing area. And we were able to build a wall. So this is where Side Country will live. On the other side of that wall is our rental shop and our rental fleet. And so that's going to happen. And then this is another view of the new Side Country space. And the ticketing and ski school area is moving back into the corner where we used to have it prior to the redevelopment. So we've repurposed that desk. Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just curious, what does, and maybe others don't know this inherently as well.
Sure.
What does Side Country Sports do for the Snowbowl today, and how do they feel about this space?
So Side Country Sports has retail skis and other equipment that anyone could buy when they're at the mountain. I believe they're happy to be able to be in this space. This is a temporary space. This is what we have to do for this season. It's convenient for folks to get to them. It's convenient for them as well. We have a few things that we need to finish up for them before they can move in, but they want to, and we believe we can help them move in by next week.
Just for my quick history lesson, is Side Country today performing what Charlie Pearson used to do?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, that was what you were after.
Yeah.
So when the first modular building that is going away, we acquired that from MS 8028 in 2004 to become building for Ragged Mountain Sports, which was Charlie Pearson, and our Race Alpine Training Center. So those were the functions that happened in that building.
I had a phone call with one of the owners of Side Country Sports last week, and this is not what they'd like. I mean, I think that's a mischaracterization to say that they're happy with this. They definitely would prefer a new building. They asked for a new building, and I mean that. Just to be clear, that's not the impression I received from him at all.
Okay. We've been working with Brian pretty regularly, and he hasn't.
I would agree with that too. And I think that what Beth is showing you is the temporary solution for this season, because I think that any solution moving forward that's going to be more permanent will be much better if we can plan and budget for it. So I agree that this is not ideal and not, what they want to be doing long term. I think for this season, it's acceptable if it's a short-term solution. Same with the race club.
Better than nothing.
That's pretty much it. Better than nothing. Yeah. Okay.
I'm Holly Anderson. I'm the assistant at the Snowbowl and work with Beth. We've been working on this project for really only since October 23rd was when we discovered that the building had a real issue. Just to give a little bit of history about that, prior to the first lease with Side Country, I think was signed in 2017. And the original plan was for them to be at the Snowbowl year round, doing bikes in the summer and skiing and retail in the winter. And during COVID, they pulled back the time that they were spending at the Snowbowl for a variety of reasons. And this in March, when we finished out the winter season, they went back down to the Rockland store and didn't have the store here open as they haven't for the last couple of years. And so the building sat with no one in it. And unbeknownst to us, there was literally things brewing inside the building, and the summer of rain that we had didn't help our situation at all. So once our crew ended up getting a lot of large projects done this summer, started to tackle the work we were going to do, which we knew we needed to do to repair the roof. When they went to do that on October 21, maybe, we discovered that there was an awful lot of mold inside this building, and the roof was, it wasn't just a matter of putting another set of shingles on top of the roof. We had holes in the roof. The trusses were starting to had deteriorated to the point where you could see a hole through the roof. And so we worked with Jeremy. We asked him to come out and just give us, from his professional, because we're not builders, give us his professional look at it. And did he agree with us that this was not a building that we would want to have anyone working inside of for even 60 days this season? And so Jeremy agreed and said, no, we really can't have anyone in there. And we called Brian Kelly from Side Country and gave him this bad news, and said, we're going to have to scramble and try to come up with an alternative for both you and our race team kids to be able to have a space. And so we did talk with Brian, and we had 4 different options ranging from $147,000 building, which was, which would have been great, to 2 $50,000 buildings and a $16,000 Amish structure that would come to us, basically just a structure that we would then have to retrofit, finish up, which would probably make it a $25,000 building. And this was at the end of October. And we talked with Audra and Jeremy, and we met with Brian and Andrew, and but we decided amongst as town employees that we really just couldn't come up with $25,000 or $50,000 or let alone this large amount of money that we had not budgeted for, and we didn't think we didn't have the time to get a building over there that fast. And so we brainstormed some ideas. We've relocated some departments to accommodate the retail space and give them the space that we did. And actually I think that Brian would agree that it's going to be great to have the retail right next to the rental. That if you go over to the rental shop and you need something that we can't provide for you, such as a binding fix or a repair or a tightening or whatever, we can send you right over to Side Country, right next door. You don't have to walk through the lodge and down through the parking lot to go find them. So they're very aware that we are under the gun. Brian and I have been in close contact over the last couple of weeks as we've been tearing the building apart, moving all the ticketing into the lodge and getting it ready so that they have a clean slate to work with, and in the hopes that they can get in there on Monday and start really putting it together, because the 23rd of December, which was when we want to open, is going to come really, really quickly. It's frighteningly fast how that's coming up on us, and they're aware of it. And Brian, he understands from what he said to us, and I understand that they're not happy. We're not happy. We would love to be able to give them and our race group a really, really nice building, but we did not want to come to the select board at the beginning of November and ask for $50,000 for a temporary building when in actuality, we really need to be thinking about what this whole place is going to be, because we've had these 2 modulars there for too long. And they're just, this is really sort of creating an obvious time when we've got to think about what we're going to do for the long term. And Brian is Side Country. They're very, they've already been talking with us and working with us in a smaller group about what the future might look like, how we can make that work. So we're really excited to, like I said, use this as a catalyst for really saying, okay, we can't stop anymore. We can't kick the can down the road any longer. Is really what we're trying to focus on right now, and move us forward.
And give us time to plan.
Typically with a shingled roof, you can tell the signs of deterioration well in advance. Was there any visible or visual inspection done of this roof? Or was there any signs prior to the finding of mold that this roof was deteriorating significantly?
So it's been obvious for quite a few years that the whole building was deteriorating.
The roof repair was budgeted for
Yeah.
in the spring.
We had also already redone the inside ceiling earlier. We hadn't gotten to the outside of the roof.
But why would you go in that order? Why would you go for the interior repair before you did the
Because we did it
exterior?
on rainy days when the guys had nothing else to do. So every winter, when we get an amount of snow, we have to clear the roof. Or it ice dams and then it leaks. And it's a very shallow roof. So it's always an issue when we have snow and we have to remove it.
So you didn't observe any mold or anything like that when you repaired the ceiling?
So the building was pretty much wrapped in plastic from the ceiling tile above. So any moisture that got in was basically
Kept
above.
in. Yep.
Kept in. And so
So you didn't inspect it when you took the ceiling down or repaired the ceiling? You didn't inspect above the
we
plastic?
did. It wasn't on that side of the building. It was in the raised side of the building where the water sat and clearly got into the walls.
Okay.
I'm with you, Tom, that it's just disappointing that lack of maintenance necessitates an emergency requirement. And it's surprising to me how that happens. You know, I know in my own structure, my own house, I look at the roof occasionally and I get someone to fix it when it's needed.
I mean,
That's just me.
I understand the idea that we're not looking to invest long-term in these structures, and that's, what happens a lot. It feels not smart to put in a bunch of money to those structures, knowing that they're going to be replaced later. And I think for some people, it's obvious that they've known that, oh, of course, we know this is in rough shape. It's been a long time since anything like that's come to the select board where we've been told, just so you know, this is in really rough shape. Do you want to put money into this right now or don't you? I think that's maybe the part that's been missing sometimes. It's when for a long time, the people that were here in this position all had been here long enough that they all just kind of knew and had said, oh no, we don't want to put anything into that. And that's probably the message you got for a long time. And it's been a while since that's been renewed, where everybody here has been told, hey, there are all these problems. Do you want to do something or not?
It does need to be brought to our attention, though. I mean, we don't go over there not looking at the condition of the roof. It's just stuff that needs to, if things are deteriorating anywhere in the town for that matter, and there's ways that we can preserve them or make a decision whether we want to preserve them, they need to be brought to our attention.
Agreed.
Is there going to be any adjustment to the side country lease? Does that need to happen, or?
No, but that might,
the same
that might
amount?
be something with the more longer term plan for what's done there that we definitely need to adjust. Because I think there's, a real commitment to them being out there long term, both on their part and on ours. And they're willing to work with us to figure out what that more longer term solution is. And I think, this not the ideal solution. It's a workable solution for a very temporary basis, which is this one season. But I think that what we come up with going forward, which we can work with them to, figure out a financial agreement for maybe cost sharing for that, or there are just other options that we'll have time to work with them on, and the race program.
So how long do we think this arrangement that you're describing here is going to be in place?
Hopefully this season.
But hopefully, or?
The goal is to have something that's brought in front of the, for the budget process, so that we can implement it in the summer and have everybody back in or have the two programs that had to move back in to a more permanent location.
So what you'll bring to us in the budget process is a permanent solution or a temporary solution?
I would say that it's going to be there for quite a while. And I think that this is another thing we need to since we need to look at the entire site and how it all fits together, this is something that we also need to work with our partners on, like the foundation and others who are involved in planning for the site. So,
Right, like,
you
does
know,
it get rolled into the lodge, or is it?
exactly, like all those conversations about the, you know, the new lodge and what's going in there, and if we have this building, what could it be used for? Because I think the goal has got to be that anything that comes out there and is put on the site can work with everything that's already planned for the Snowbowl into the future, which is hard to do when you just have a couple of months versus longer to have these conversations and, you know, figure out what the costs are going to be and what we need to get partners to work with us on.
Okay. Beth, anything else you want to continue?
I'm sure.
Oh, Stephanie, please.
Yeah, can I just, so, Tom, I agree with you that we probably have a lot of other structures that the town owns that are in maybe not as bad a shape as this, but probably pretty close. One right on the town landing that, you know, we keep pushing off and pushing off. And I know there are others as well. Our infrastructure is just getting to a point where we have to take a bigger look at it. And I mean, it's going to be a massive amount of money. So this workable solution for this year is, I mean, I don't know what else you would do out there, but I would like to hear really soon the other solutions that are being thrown around, because this is a huge buzz around the town. People are throwing out assumptions and coming up with their own, I heard this is going on and that's going on. I mean, the town is invested in this property so much. I'm hoping that we get to a temporary long-term solution, is what I've been calling it, sooner than later, and like sooner than March, because I don't want the town to keep spinning its own wheels, throwing out their own ideas and what they've heard, making it into a bigger situation, when I think we're working towards a solution, even though we have to put it through budget. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Stephanie. Beth?
Okay, so I guess, you know, we've gone over what the changes are going to be. I just wanted to go over that, you know, we have large and very expensive equipment that are very specific to the ski area. We have 2 massive vertical motors that pump water onto the mountain that are very expensive. We maintain those. We have 3 air compressors. Now that we own them, you know, they're ours and we maintain them. This is all for snowmaking, obviously. 6,000 feet of snowmaking hoses. We have 3-phase power on the mountain and capabilities. Many tower guns, sled guns, fan guns. We have 2 piston bully groomer machines, and we are talking about needing to trade the 600, which is a 2008 machine. So, you know, we have that coming up as well. We have 3 lifts, triple lift, double chair lift, and a conveyor surface lift that we maintain. And this year we had a massive project with replacing the haul rope on the triple. That was a big project where we had to take all 168 chairs off, cut the cable, take the cable down, string the new cable up, replace all 100, now we got 169 chairs, and that's spacing them out correctly and doing all of that work. And then we had to load test, and then we had to have the state inspectors come and inspect it. There was a lot of work to do that project that we were all hands on. Yes.
Well, it's good that you were able to get that done. I do have a question about how long do those cables normally last?
25 years.
And how long did this one last?
This one lasted since 2014. And we've learned many lessons from this.
What are some of the things that you've learned so that in 11 years we're not doing this again?
So there was when you take the riblet piece of the chair is like this piece. You have to stretch the cable open, and in the middle of the cable used to be hemp, but now it's something synthetic. You have to cut like a cork out, and then you place the chair into this, and the cable tightens and holds the chair on. And every 5 years, that is supposed to move so many feet. The machine that we inherited when we got the lift from Shawnee Peak, now Pleasant Mountain, detention was an old made piece of machinery that nobody made. It was like something somebody pieced together to do
Be
this.
like a tensioner like you have in a pulley system.
Yeah. And so it was apparently putting too much pressure and damaging the small bits of the cable when it was doing this. And so for 2 times that they moved these chairs, it had more damage done. We learned about it and purchased a new detentioner in its place. And then we learned after the fall inspections last year, they were not going to allow us to run it for another season without a new cable. And that's when I came to the board to purchase that rope from Tokyo Rope to make this plan. So the race department has really expensive gates and bee netting and safety equipment that we have on the mountain, as well as timing equipment and wiring. They also own a PA system. Patrol has rescue toboggans, AEDs, ropes and harnesses, an incident reporting software system that we got. And we did acquire the snowmobile that they were asking for through a memorial donation that we got this summer. So the patrol is happy to have their snowmobile. We also own side-by-sides and 4-wheeler ATVs and snowmobiles for the mountain. We have a whole series of terrain park elements that we maintain and weld and fix. And we have a Nordic tow-behind groomer for our Nordic ski trails that we groom after we have a natural snow. And we have plow trucks and a tractor with a snow scoop, which is a special attachment that we attach to our Kubota tractor to remove snow. Any questions about equipment?
Yes, I have questions about for all the machinery you have, do you have, I guess you maintain documented maintenance schedules on the equipment?
Yep. I actually brought that pretty recently to the board, but I can bring that again if you'd like to see those. It's a whole list of everything and when they get maintained and what the schedule is. Yep.
If you did it once, you don't need to do it again. I was just curious.
Sure. So currently, we're doing our site law review right now with Gartley and Dorsey, and I spoke to them the other day. They are estimating sometime this spring to have something for us. Typically what comes with that is they hold a public information meeting and explain everything that they found and what the site law is. We're also working with the Outdoor Sports Institute, which is OSI. They're helping us develop a multi-use trail master plan. And we're working with the 4-season work group to brainstorm the future of the Snowbowl and other recreational possibilities at the Ragged Mountain Recreation Area.
The Gartley and Dorsey, the site law stuff, is that in order to have the Round the Mountain Trail?
Well, that's part of it. The site law, remember when we were going through the redevelopment, they were saying that after 20 acres, and I hope I'm saying this right, Jeremy, but after 20 acres of development, you're supposed to do this site law. And at the time of the redevelopment, they were saying it was like 19 something acres.
I think they said we were actually over, but it was historically over. So
Historically over, meaning nothing prior to 1972 counts because that was already
But is
done.
this what's holding up the Round the Mountain extension?
Yes.
Okay.
The final loop of it. And they also
Final
have, not all because of our site law, they also have their own
Connection
easements and
issue.
connection issues going on. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to move forward even if we were ready?
Correct. I mean, they could probably do a section on our land, but they can't, they are not making the whole loop yet. So what's next? We need a strategic commitment to build a community center at the Ragged Mountain Recreation Area with a 4-season focus. We'd like to hold regular updates to the Select Board and the Ragged Mountain Foundation. Network with colleagues and landscape architects to help with the vision. We want to do some community outreach and hold more events and activities and programming out there so people can, enjoy it. And come up with a marketing plan and a campaign, a capital campaign. So here's a picture of us replacing the hall rope with the fixed grips on the chairlift. Here is the Hosmer Pond boat launch. So in the October 2021 storm, it was one of the storms that we had, a bunch of erosion took place. The picture on the, well, I guess it's on the left while you're looking at it. It eroded away the road. You can see it past kind of the saplings there. And I was working with FEMA for a year and a half on this and 3 other projects on the mountain. And we got this done this fall with Farley and Sons. They had bid on the project when we put it out to bid. So, and it's really nice if you have a chance to see it. They did a really great job.
Did FEMA pay you money?
So FEMA is supposed to pay us money. We have not seen the money yet, but yes.
Now, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
thank you.
Sorry. And then this Maidens Cliff Trail has been eroding over the years, and with help from the state park, our crew went out and we rerouted some of it, and then we stabilized some of the erosion that was taking place out there. So, another gem we have. So that's the end of the slideshow, and I thank you very much. I would love some direction from the board. Sometimes we feel like we want to jump out there and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, but we need your help and your support to tell us that that's what you want what the town wants. So I thank you in advance, and I can't wait to hear what the next direction is.
Board, any comments or questions? Allison?
I guess it's been great to get, a kind of comprehensive update. I think I would personally love to see this kind of a thing, but maybe with just a little bit more public notice and some kind of a plan to be able to, have other people give their input. Just seeing on the agenda, Snowbowl update, I think isn't enough to trigger all of the people that have an opinion or ideas or input about the Snowbowl. So I would kind of defer to some of those groups personally, wanting to see what the mountain biking groups and the foundation and, all of those people that have worked so hard have to say about all of this, but definitely overdue for a conversation and some steps going forward.
Thanks, Allison.
Well, thank you for bringing up the pieces that you did. And it is important to learn from those mistakes that have occurred that can be costly and, as you see, require a lot of work when something does need to get done. But, bad news is not like cheese. It doesn't get better with age. And so thank you for bringing those items up. And we do want to make sure that everyone can enjoy the facilities that we have and that they're maintained so that they, A, look nice, and B, work effectively for the people who want to use them and people who like to enjoy them. But I'm interested in if anyone publicly, after Stephanie has an opportunity, or if she has anything to add. But it's an important, expensive discussion.
Thanks, Chris. Stephanie, anything tonight?
I'll just add that Snowbowl and that whole resource source out there is so supported by the community. And Beth, I 100% agree with you that it is time again, because I feel like we made a vote a while ago to preserve and maintain and rebuild, to get back to what is going to happen out there. So starting this conversation again is well overdue.
Thanks, Stephanie. Any comments from anybody here tonight? Okay. Thank you for the update, Beth.
Like you're here, you might as well.
I know.
Come on up,
Uh,
Bob.
What's that?
Come on up.
I'll say a couple words, but I'm really here to learn.
Bob, if you could just introduce yourself.
Yeah, Bob Gordon with the Ragged Mountain Foundation, president. Here tonight just to hear what's going on. I'm as curious as everybody in town. What's the update? The foundation, as many people know, was founded in 1991. Not unlike, it's great to hear Mike tonight talk about the sort of public-private partnership with Curtis Island, which has maintenance issues. I mean, I think a lot of the town properties, what I heard tonight was things have been deferred maintenance around the block. The foundation was very involved in phase 1 and 2 of the project. We're still committed to the project, to what I call phase 3, which is doing the lodge. And we've been approached by members of the town and others, and Jeremy and the committee, to re-engage, which we're more than willing to do, and really want to partner with the town and be true partners. And once again, the foundation is people, just to educate, there's 3 parties, right? There's the town. There was a redevelopment committee, which did phase 1 and 2 in a master plan. And that group was sunset. And then the foundation, which we run. And the foundation is really fundraising to support the town. And we look to the town to be stewards of those investments and to maintain them. But we're excited, we're re-energized, and want to listen and learn and go from there. So I reached out to a couple of you. I'm going to reach out to all of you, select board members, and we'll put together a plan, hopefully.
Thanks, Bob. Looking forward to working with you. Anybody else on the Snowbowl tonight? Moving on to discussion item 7B, which is the Camden Wastewater Treatment Plant issue with Rockport update. Audra?
Yes, so I think anybody who's been paying attention to Rockport Select Board meetings knows that they've settled up on the outstanding wastewater user rates. I guess the sort of one issue that we need to work through with Rockport moving forward is that when they were budgeting and when they were trying to get to a position where they could settle up with us, we had really the only thing that we sort of all had to go off from was the agreement, that the mediated agreement that sort of resulted in Rockport separating from the system. And one of the things that was outlined in that agreement was a 15% reduction in their rates over what the rate that's charged to Camden residents. And there were a couple of reasons for that. I think that the simplest way to understand it is that instead of sort of combing through Camden's budget to try to find any sort of potential capital expenses that didn't serve the Rockport portion of the collection system, it was just easier to come up with sort of like a flat number that was a little bit more reflective of an average. So when we were preparing our budgets, that was the number that Rockport used to try and figure out what they were going to be budgeting for Camden rates when they're preparing their budget. So I think that that's sort of the major outstanding issue at that point, or at this point with Rockport. Apart from that, they've gone to great lengths to settle up on the outstanding bill that they have with Camden. Am I missing anything else big in this? I mean, there's just so much history to try to jump in and give.
No, I think you did a good job of introducing it. Any questions?
I mean, I think
Allison?
that makes sense because what the conversation that we had before was that we were willing to consider and interested in considering partnering with Rockport or continuing to take Rockport's wastewater in the long term, that the first priority needed to be catching up on the late or the money that was owed. And then at that point, we could look at what a longer term agreement would look like, but that we didn't want to consider until that happened, we just wanted to keep it all the same, what the Camden rate is, what they get charged also. So it seems like this is the appropriate time I don't always follow every Rockport Select Board meeting. So this is the first time I'm hearing that, okay, they've settled up on their past bills. So now we can talk about going forward.
Right, and I do believe that was the intent of their board, is that they wanted to settle up so we could have that more longer. And there's a couple of them in the room that can nod about it, so that we could have that conversation about moving forward.
But really, we have a lot to deal with Camden. The other part of that was us needing to understand our long-term needs better, so that, because we've been hit with a lot of information about all of the problems that we have. And in order to have a long-term agreement with Rockport, we need to feel confident about the capacity of our Rawson Avenue pump station, the plant as a whole. And, so that's the part of it that's sort of ongoing. I think that partially doesn't have anything to do with whether we're happy or not with Rockport. It's just like, oh my gosh, we have to get our own house in order a little bit before we can commit.
But we're already taking that.
We're
We're already
what?
processing there. It's not adding to what our current volume is. Our current volume is our current volume. It
Yeah, but
includes that.
sure. Yeah. Which is why we're not trying to kick anybody off right this second, but it's a larger conversation. How much does Rockport expand? Like, I think we should be sitting down for a workshop and really talking this out rather than just a little bit here. But we need to talk about what are the long-term plans for Rockport? How much do they expect to expand? How much of that would come to Camden? How much additional capacity we have at Rawson Ave? How much of our future planned expansions would go to the Rawson Avenue pump station? How much do we need to reserve of that for Camden? If there's definitely enough capacity, then I feel okay about that. But then also looking at our treatment plant license, which is going to be, or permit that's coming up for renewal, how much nitrogen are we comfortable dumping into Camden Harbor? I just think it's there's a lot to consider.
I think that the board, did have a vote on September 5th. And I think the board was pretty clear. I wasn't here, actually. But I agreed with the board's clarity that the expectation was that Rockport was going to pay back the debt in full. I think the 15% discount was made at a time when, and under the understanding that Rockport was going to leave our system. So I was disappointed to see that Rockport did not pay the debt in full, that they chose to give themselves the 15% discount when, there was a board vote 4-0. It was very clear that we expected the debt to be paid in full.
What was billed, yeah.
And I think everybody else on the board knew that I was in favor of that as well. And I expressed those sentiments to the leaders in Rockport myself, that I expected the debt to be paid in full. So I was disappointed to see that wasn't done. And to me, there's something left there to talk about. And I think that your idea to do it, maybe in a workshop setting is probably the best way to go. I agree with you, Allison, that Camden needs to significantly consider our wastewater treatment facility capacity, and also the fact that we dump our wastewater into Camden Harbor, the treated wastewater. I don't like that. I would like to see our wastewater, treated wastewater, somewhere much, much further out than Camden Harbor. I don't like the idea that we do that, let alone that we're bringing in wastewater that we get paid to treat to do that. So those are large issues for me to overcome. It's not just the plant capacity, it's the volume of the treated wastewater that we're putting into Camden Harbor. I think if Rockport residents had Camden's wastewater going into their harbor, they would feel the same way.
And yeah, that's what they've said in the past. So. I mean, maybe there's a solution where we treat everything, figure out how to treat everything to a higher standard. I see lots of
that's kind
potential
another-
solutions.
Another thing, that's an opportunity when we talk about a longer term agreement going forward. Do we talk about some sort of pre-treatment requirement that might, address some of the concerns? Those are, I think, good conversations to have.
So when you say Rockport has settled up with their bill, I guess I feel like I'm hearing two different things from you and from Tom.
I guess
Paid what we billed them, or they paid what we billed them minus 15%?
minus 15% for, I believe it's these 2 quarters, the past 2 quarters for this financial year. FY.
Let's
So,
leave that aspect out of it. We'll call them up. if
so I agree that
necessary.
it was clear what we were saying before was that we had an interlocal agreement with Rockport that expired, and that had all this complicated funding mechanism. But when that expired, and when the capital costs of the new treatment plant were not shared, that it shifted Rockport to a customer relationship and not a partnership agreement or relationship. And so I think I would like to see us get back to something different. I understand it's really a huge amount of money for Rockport because they have all these, it's not just that their people in Rockport are paying the same as Camden, it's that they're paying our rate plus all of their costs to pump everything and do all of that. So I do think there are ways that we can use resources and money efficiently between the two towns and work together, but we are paying everything is being paid for by Camden. So I feel like I do think that's an obstacle because that's not what we decided to do. We said we can talk about a relationship going forward after that's paid, like what, actually what we billed them. So, but I think all this is probably better to discuss in I read Denise's letter. Every time I sit and talk with Denise, we tend to feel in a very similar way about things. I think we've been missing some, and I know there've been some conversations that have been had, but there's a lot to talk about. And I think it's the right time to do that. So we could all sit down, or whoever wants to sit down and talk about this, we could kind of do that rather than us talking at them and then them talking at us in a meeting. And
Chris?
I'm curious about the 15%. One, how much are we really talking about? How many dollars does that equate to typically? And two, was there any sort of commitment that we had made? I mean, where did this 15% come up with to say, yeah, it's 15% versus something else? Did we, when they were doing their budgeting, did we
I think you could
give
have to
any
read.
indication?
So there were a couple of things. It was pulled out of the mediated agreement that was premised on Rockport eventually leaving the system. And the 15% was reached by looking back a few years and, looking at what in our budget were Camden-only capital expenses and what percentage of our budget was that. And it didn't seem like it was any higher than 15%.
And is that something we said, hey, we'll be good with whatever?
For in the mediated agreement with them.
So
Yeah.
if it was in the mediated agreement, it seems like they would have paid in full in accordance with the agreement. That the
Well,
agreement didn't
The
require,
agreement was never,
required 85%.
the agreement was never signed by anyone. It was never, nobody moved forward with it. I guess what I'm saying is at the time we were preparing our budgets, there hadn't been any further conversations about it. We were in the middle of, the situation that we were in. So we had to do our very best based on what we had at the time. And that's what John and I discussed was the 15%.
I think at that time, if my recollection is correct, there was support on the Camden board for Rockport to leave our system and develop their own system. And so that 15% was acceptable to us under those terms.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there was momentum in Rockport for the same. So I think that's where
Right.
that came from at the time.
Stephanie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have no problem getting together with Rockport. I'm just not sure. I feel like we're having the same conversation that we just had a few months ago. So I'm not sure what what is our discussion? What's the path? What's the road we're going down with this discussion?
The reason it's on the agenda tonight is I think we had done it previously in executive session. We hadn't discussed specific terms in public, and I felt like it was the appropriate time to discuss it again to move this discussion along.
No, when you weren't here, and I think, yeah, that would have meant Stephanie was chairing, that conversation was all in public.
That's right, sure.
But I mean, I've been wondering too, like, okay, we voted on all of that and we discussed it quite a bit. It was sort of a turning over a new leaf. Like we do want to try to go back to the drawing board with Rockport and figure out, is there a way that it would make sense for them to stay on our system, which was a big departure from what the position of some on the previous board had been. And then, but we said, but we want to settle up this amount that was billed in the past. So it seems like it's not, I agree with Stephanie, it feels a little bit like we're having the same conversation again and rehashing where the 15% came from or didn't come from, or would need more preparation than anything any of us had for tonight.
Now that Rockport has made payments, I mean, it's time for us to make some decisions. They have paid 85% of the amount we billed them. So
Yeah, so that's the big
that's
update
the
that I
thing
didn't
that's the thing that's
understand.
changed since September.
But do they need to pay the whole thing before we consider it, or?
So just to clarify, they've paid 100% for all the quarters except for the most recent past two, which is the 85%.
So there's some inconsistency there, or is there some rationale to this?
So because the 15% was for this current financial year, the discussion that John and I had when we were preparing our budgets, they took the past years on face value. This is what you billed. This is
Okay.
what we're paying. But because the planning for this year was done at a time of uncertainty, and the 15% was the best thing that we had to go on, that's why they applied it to those last two quarters.
So we would be showing consistency if we said, yes, or, you as the town manager discussed this was probably going to be the cost, the 85%.
Let me, here, I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. I guess is the 15% discount that was applied to these two quarters enough on either side to not move forward with negotiating a new interlocal agreement, including things like pretreatment in Rockport, if that's what everyone decides is the best way forward.
To be clear, I don't think pretreatment in Rockport is going to solve any of this. I'm talking about treating all of our stuff to a higher standard, but I think this needs a bigger conversation.
15% equals about how much?
I could not tell you that. No.
Is it like 20,000, 30,000?
It's too,
Well, if they owe us, it's about $400 and something thousand a year that we get the Rockport revenue. So if they were to continue with the 15%.
So I think that,
Right.
I personally, I'd like to see, until we negotiated a new interlocal agreement, I'd like to see Rockport treated like any other customer. They have told us that they made mistakes when they calculated the rate they were paying, which was about 10% of the rate we were billing them. Then they chose, as my understanding, not to participate. I mean, I think we sent them a bill for the treatment, the upgrades to the treatment plant, and they chose not to pay that as well. Those are things that a partner would do. A good partner would pay the rate, or at least have a broad discussion about the rate, not pay 90% of it. And then again, somebody who's interested in being a good partner, not just a regular customer, would want to be a participant in the upgrade of the treatment facility?
Having been here during that time, I think it's a little bit more complicated. There was really anybody to blame probably isn't here anymore. And so there was a time when we were meeting, Camden, Rockport were meeting a bunch, and you can see pictures of us in 2016, like over at the treatment plant with Rockport, and totally different, it was Rick Bates and all different select board members. So, and they were budgeting for their portion of it. And there was all this talk. And then they've had two different town managers. We've had different
To
select
me,
board
these
members.
are all just excuses, though. This
But it's
doesn't
not-
sound,
I'm
because
just saying
we're
it's not-
responsible for Camden's actions. And
The
they're-
issue is that I am in agreement that the interlocal agreement expired. We had an interlocal agreement that was negotiated over many years where Camden voters turned it down initially because they didn't want Rockport's wastewater. There was all this negotiation to convince Camden to take Rockport's wastewater because Rockport didn't do the initial planning in the 60s to build a treatment plant like Camden did. So then we got to this agreement that didn't say, it said it expired after 30 years. And it didn't say, Camden's the one with the infrastructure agreeing to let Rockport send stuff. It didn't say anything about what happens at the end of 30 years. So really, when you are the ones without a treatment plant and you have an agreement like that expiring, it's like they're the ones with the problem, not us. So that's what happened. It expired, and now they're being treated. They also, I think, just kind of forgot to budget for their portion of the treatment plant, or, it was a decision. I don't know. I would like to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they thought that's all sort of water under the bridge. The fact is that Camden taxpayers have invested heavily in this, and it took a lot of convincing to get them to initially allow Rockport on the system. And so when we looked at this before, we said this would be a revenue hit for us, right? It's going to cause Camden ratepayers to have to pay more. So when I thought about this and we looked at all of our problems that we have, it's like the benefit of getting that money from Rockport every year. 30 years ago, they decided we're going to be able to do so much with that. We're going to fix all our problems with Rockport's money. And so it's going to be worth it. I can't with a straight face right now say it's worth it as a Camden ratepayer even to say, even if my bill goes up 25% because we are losing some revenue, it's more important to me that Camden can handle its own stuff. Getting that extra wastewater, I don't know that the average Camden resident thinks, yeah, if I can just get my wastewater bill down a little bit, take all the wastewater you can from these other towns. So I think that we're not there isn't such a benefit right now to Camden residents to take any negotiated discount on our, on the wastewater. We're not in a position where we actually want more wastewater. We want less of it. And I'd be willing to pay more in order to have less of it.
I agree. Stephanie or Chris?
Well, I think during the last two presentations that we've had with the wastewater group, the numbers are kind of like the facility can handle about 5 million gallons a period, is what they're saying in the slides a couple weeks
Don't have a
ago.
permit for
Yeah,
that.
the 1.2 is the number to work with.
No, wait. The equipment can handle 5 million gallons of,
That's what they
with a
believe.
restricted thing, correct. We are currently licensed for 1.2 million. And typically we run around 700,000, and except for when we get rain, and then it goes up. But to me, it sounds like it's a licensing thing.
You want that
Whether
much
we-
more wastewater in the harbor?
Regardless of which harbor it goes into, it's going to go into a harbor. I'd rather not have more of our land taken up with more facilities when one facility can handle it for the other, unless there's going to be a significant increase from what they're currently, Rockport is already in this 700,000 typical gallons, whatever the period was, week, day, month, whatever it was, that Rockport's already in those numbers. It's not like it's something, like, oh, we're going to work with Rockport now and suddenly it's going to be more. Yes, if there are things, there are changes in their infrastructure, that they expand the sewer lines to other locations, yes, then I expect that there'd be, an increase, just like if we went ahead and did that too. But to me, the difference between what the equipment can handle today versus our current volume, I would rather have less land taken up with sewer treatment plants. Does that mean that we shouldn't change the output? And if you wanted to go further out into the bay, if we can, that's good. But still, I'd rather not have more land in between Camden and Rockport that is wastewater treatment facility.
And how do you feel about the discount, the 15% discount?
If the 15% discount was something that was decided upon between the two town managers when they did their budget piece, I wouldn't hold any talks back. I'd say, great, that's what we said that we were going to do between town managers. If that was what was worked out, wait.
Well, that's not what Audra said, though.
If that was what was worked out, and then the other side, if it was not. But if that's what was worked out and they paid that amount, whatever that amount is, that's great. Let's move on and get a new agreement with other pieces that we want in that hopefully last another 30 years.
Thanks, Chris. Stephanie?
So I would echo a lot of what Chris is saying, but I want to back up because I think that we're getting and jumping further ahead than where we're at right now. So when we started these discussions to keep Rockport and to renegotiate where we're at, it was basically to stop this lawsuit. So Tom, I know that you and I talked about that a lot, about the fact that why do we need a lawsuit to get this moving? Both sides are in agreement that we need to get this settled. I think that Rockport has put a good foot forward. There is some confusion on that 15% after reading Denise's email and everything that she sent over to us. There is confusion for whatever reason or whatever is being said. There's confusion on that. I feel like Rockport has definitely tried to come to the table again. I think we need to meet them there. I think that we need to continue on the path of getting these talks going. An interlocal agreement was going to come after the fact of getting this lawsuit stopped so that we aren't throwing money out the window at lawyers. Builds better community, builds a better relationship. We are going to have to move forward with so many other different things with fire and EMS, that having this hang over our heads is a dark cloud. I want to move past it. I think that we can. And then at that point, from what I understood, the talks were stop the lawsuit, get a small understanding between us, work towards an interlocal agreement, and then have these a larger discussion with people much more knowledgeable about the subject than I to come in and help shepherd us through these processes to get us to what kind of interlocal agreement or what is our long-term solution. I think our long-term solution is down the road. We need to back up and look at what's in front of us right now. And that's what I wish that we could get kind of back to, is to say, what are we going to do right now? Because right now we have this big cloud over our heads with this lawsuit that I feel like both of us were working to put behind us. So what are we going to do about that?
Stephanie, do you like the idea of getting together with Rockport? Is that the next logical step that you see as well?
I'm not sure that that is the right step, seeing as we have a lawsuit going on between the two. We have lawyers that are doing their talkings on both sides. putting other people in the middle of that, into that sort of talking back and forth. I'm not sure that, I mean, I would need to have Bill and a different perspective on that. I have no problems getting together and talking with them. I'm just not sure with a lawsuit on the table if that's something that should happen.
I really feel like we're not in a position to talk about the terms of a long-term interlocal agreement right now because we don't
Right.
have all of the information about, 5.2 million gallons or how much Rawson Avenue can do. And so and then the possible future requirements of our permit. I think in the past, Camden has said, we want to go with the minimum requirements possible. We want to, if we don't have to chlorinate, we're not going to chlorinate. If we don't have to treat for nitrogen, we're not going to do that. And I don't think that's consistent with the goals of most residents to emit the dirtiest water legally permissible. And so I also love Rockport Harbor too. And I do in some ways think it's silly to add, the thing is that if Rockport built something, they would have to treat to a much higher standard. And so Camden has this old thing and we're getting away with doing something that you would never, ever be allowed to do anymore. So they want to jump onto that system where we're allowed to do something, putting stuff out an effluent pipe that is never allowed. I mean, it's not that I'm not saying they want to do that, but we've got a good deal going in Camden. You can swim right here and the effluent pipe's right there and the windjammers are right there. That's not even ever conceived of anymore. So if I'd like to look at how what our realistic options are for treating that water to a higher standard in places where they have to let the water go out into a river, for instance, when the ocean isn't right there. The wastewater does get treated to a much higher standard. So I don't think we have enough information right now to look at an interlocal agreement. The question is this 15% or not? And I'm willing to talk about that more, but I would like to talk about it more with a few people that are really interested in talking about it. But
Thanks, Allison. Stephanie?
So I would like to, is Bill on? I don't think that he is.
No.
So back when this new board came on, Tom, we were moving forward with the thought that we wanted to put this lawsuit behind us. And then all of these long-term things could be settled after that. So what I'm hearing is that we want to jump to the long-term solution. And what it feels like is we're going to keep this lawsuit going until the long-term solution is had. Is that kind of where we're headed right now?
If you're asking my opinion, I don't think we need to maintain a lawsuit to continue to ask Rockport to pay the rate that we bill them.
probably not.
No, I don't think that's necessary personally. I don't know if we're in a position tonight to discuss maintaining or dismissing a lawsuit.
I think we got to treat the lawsuit a little bit separately.
Okay, but in that, we can't get together and have a mediation amongst ourselves when the lawyers are doing their own mediation. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why are we?
There are no lawyers doing mediation.
So is there,
everything?
What's going on with
is
the
just-
lawsuit?
let's let Audra answer that question. Audra, to summarize Stephanie's question, is there anything that precludes us from requesting a joint workshop with Rockport on this particular, legally or
No.
otherwise?
No.
Okay.
Then why do we even have the lawsuit going if it's not going to make a difference? In normal mediation between lawyers, the parties don't talk to each other until something is hashed out. So I'm a little confused.
Is anything even happening with the lawsuit? I didn't
Let's let
understand.
Audra answer the question.
Discovery was deferred. We both agreed that we would set that back because the hope is that we can come to some sort of understanding, and whether it be like a short-term or a short-term stopgap agreement to bridge to a longer-term agreement with Rockport, and have that be part of what comes out of that if we move towards dismissal.
I mean, to say that we can't talk there, I know that there have been, I haven't gotten to be part of most of them, but there have been all these meetings.
There's been plenty of
happen.
meetings that have
It's
happened
just
while this is going on.
that we're going to talk about it. It's being talked about. I think not just like maybe I don't want to be involved in all the details of all the EMS stuff because I don't have a lot to add. That maybe there could be a smaller committee of people that could start talking about all this. There's so much to talk about. And I think there's appetite for solutions on both sides, but I don't know that it makes sense to always drag it all into a whole select board meeting or.
Well, what will it take to get a short-term solution and get the lawsuit done with? Over.
I feel pretty mired by this 15%.
Yeah, I mean, we did
discussion
vote
right
on,
now.
I feel like we went through this whole thing. I thought Stephanie did this awesome job chairing that meeting, and we put a lot of effort into it and came up with something that was meaningful. And then when they got current with everything, we were also supposed to be concurrently, part of the problem is that this has nothing to do with Rockport. It's that we have all these problems that we have that we're not sure of the magnitude, and we're not sure how much we need to reserve for the future. And it makes it really hard to commit to 30 years of anything with Rockport. That's the main thing.
No, we will open to the public.
And so, you look at the newspaper articles, Rockport is expanding their system. We want to expand ours. So it's just, there's a lot to consider. And some people are going to have to talk about it quite a bit, probably, to figure out.
Well, I agree. Long-term, the big, it has to get figured out as what it's going to be. I'm just wondering, what's it going to take that we're no longer mired down in the 15%, 85% bill question? What do we have to do to say, yep, good enough?
We already did that, though. We said they have to pay, until there's an interlocal agreement, they have to pay what we bill them.
And have they paid what we've built?
Minus the 15% for the past 2 quarters.
Okay. At this point, I am going to open it up to the public. And Denise, I know you'd like to speak. I'm going to ask, I would like to hear from Denise and John if you would like to speak as well, but I need the permission from the board. They are not residents of Camden. Do I have a consensus? I mean, it's true though. I want to make sure.
That's right.
Okay.
That's this procedure. That's
yep.
fine.
Okay. Everybody, nobody objects
that
to
might be just
hearing
at
from
the
Denise or
annual
John?
town meeting,
Okay.
but-
Denise, if you'd like to come forward, we'd love to hear from you.
I just think it's important. If we're going to be working together on EMS stuff, we've got to have a really good working relationship.
I see that one issue.
We will have a good relationship if they just pay their bill. I mean, that's the other thing.
Denise Munger, Rockport, 2 Harborview Drive, Rockport.
And chair of the Rockport board. Thank you.
And chair of the Rockport Select Board. So I just wanted to offer up some possibility here. I think we would be okay if we want to go back to the mediated agreement, which would be the 15% discount. We're off in 6 years, penalties if it takes us longer. And we are looking at our own potential building out of a sewage treatment plant just because we needed to keep our options open. We're not trying to forestall the ability to talk with Camden more about long-term options, but I can hear that you're worried that you've got bigger issues that might take longer to solve, and what's the possible short-term solution here. We do feel like the 15% was an important aspect of the negotiated mediation in both April, well, May is when it came up. April, we didn't get very far in the mediated discussion, but in May, when the 15% offer was made to us, as well as, and I'm not going to hold you to that, but the other piece of it was that it could be as high as 30%, depending on the actual capital costs that were not attributable to Camden's treatment of Rockport's wastewater. But that's just background for you. You can act surprised, but that's what we were offered in the mediation. And we said yes. But in our minds, it wasn't necessarily completely tied to the 6 years and 8 years, but we're hearing loud and clear that in Camden's mind, it was. So we're okay moving forward on that basis. And also the town managers exchanged emails at the time we were doing our wastewater treatment budgets. And we were told that it made sense to rely on the 15% discount as we did our fiscal year budget. So that's what our current fiscal year budget provides for, is the 15% discount. So that's just why it feels like it was a deal that we were offered and we accepted. Totally understand that the select boards didn't go through the process of approving that, because frankly, we were hoping that there would be a mutual appetite for a long-term relationship, but that may not be the case. So that's just sort of from our perspective.
Thanks, Denise. Anybody else from the public?
I do think it's hard too. There's been, some of this was done with a smaller group of select board members. Some of them aren't even here anymore. So there's been where at times when there's been continuity on the Rockport board, there might be a difference here. And with a couple new members too, there was an appetite for okay, let's look at how can we keep Rockport on the system. And so I think the thread of the conversation gets lost sometimes between, this game of telephone.
I personally would like to take, Denise basically said that all options are still on the table. I'd like to get together with Rockport town managers and full select boards and discuss this, what they'd like, what we'd like, and see if there's any consensus there. That would be my preference.
I would love that too. I actually love the part of Rockport's website where they talk about all the things that they've studied and what this would cost and what that would cost. And it's really interesting for people that are interested in this stuff. So, maybe they've learned some things in the process too. They've done a great job reducing their I&I. So I would love to get together also.
I'm very supportive of getting together.
Stephanie?
I would have no problem getting together if, as I said, our lawyer advises us that is something that would be okay.
Okay. Audra, why don't you check with Bill Kelly and let us know? Mm-hmm. And if it's good, Denise, I'll send you an email, and John and Audra, if you don't. John, you have something to say. Yes, please.
I'll be very quick. I'm sorry. I appreciate that.
You don't have to run, but that's okay.
I was late last time, so when you were having your EMS discussion, so apologies twice for being.
John, could you just introduce yourself, please?
Got it. John Duke, town manager, town of Rockport. I think, and Denise said it well, I don't want to add too much to the conversation. I appreciate your consideration and the time you're taking to discuss this tonight. I just want to hit one point that I think is very important for me. I assume maybe Audra feels the same, but I won't speak for her. She can certainly speak for herself. The issue of the lawsuit is one that weighs heavily. And it is one that, with a number of different items that we have on our agendas, your board, our board, it weighs heavily. And I understand certainly there's a desire to come to this, a resolution and a meeting. This is something that effectively, I think we feel as though there's a very closeness of where we are on these issues at this point. I think that there's a lot of issues, but in terms of where we are, I don't think we're miles apart. I think we're feet apart, which I think is a good place to be after a long time of being miles apart. And so I appreciate the conversation. I guess my only point being, tonight's meeting was somewhat driven by the fact that we were at some point in the process of the lawsuit where discovery had to conclude. Thanks to Bill Kelly and our attorney, Dan Murphy, working with Audra, we were able to sort of hold that off so you could have a discussion that didn't fall in the middle of that conversation. But we're quite a ways down the road on this lawsuit. And the specter of that hanging, I think Stephanie described it as sort of a dark cloud hanging over it. And I think truthfully it does. And I'm just sort of speaking even less so about the specific issue, but just broadly about what it means. It stands in the way in some cases, and I pick up the phone and call Audra at any point, and I certainly, I think we have a good relationship in that way. But that specter does hang over how we can work together. Those two, to give you a sense, I think, Chris, you might have asked the question, how much money is that? $27,000, roughly $13,000 per quarter is the differential of that 15%. So in the course of paying over $400,000 to true up, you know, and trying to get there, we're talking a less than 10% number. And, you know, whatever mistakes were made, and I think, Mr. Chair, you rightly say that mistakes were made on our part. We greatly own up to them. And I think the effort that the Rockport Board and the town of Rockport are trying to do is to get past that point, because there are so many other issues that we have coming forward, and we want to be a partner. Whatever's happened in the past, we want to get past that, because there's the issues we're facing are too important. The last thing I'll just quickly say, whatever policies that the town of Camden needs to pursue in terms of whatever the quality of water needs to be, we'll leave that to your domain. That's certainly your right, and that's not for us to tell you how we want it to be. That's a longer conversation, and we certainly respect your rights to operate as you need. The longer term conversation that Mr. Chair, you and Stephanie and all of us had in Rockport here at the start of August, and Audra was there as well, about that long term, there may be a fit, there may not be a fit. And I think we have to be able, as two towns, as leaders of these two towns, to be able to say, does it make sense? We go through the exercise. Is there a fit or is there not a fit? If there's not a fit, we can all walk away as adults and say we tried, right? If there is a fit, maybe there's a savings there. Maybe there's an item that helps us both. But again, I'll go back to the specter of that lawsuit. It doesn't help. It just doesn't help, and it doesn't foster communication. And so if there's a way in which we can recognize the differences and respect those differences, seek those, and yet seek out solutions that allow us to maybe move away from some of that, the issues of the lawsuit, I would support that. I'm glad to do whatever I can to help that. That's all I've got. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, John. Anybody else tonight? Board, any final comments?
Well, if it's $27,000, I think we pretty easily said, no, let's do 20 some odd $1,000 with a Curtis Island roof. You know, it's just, to me, it's not, we're not losing a lot by saying, yep, we're good minus that $27,000. I think the relationship is a lot more important than that really small amount of our budget, small amount of the 400. If that's really the number, I think there's probably a lot more time wasted that would equate to $27,000 than the $27,000. That's just me.
I hear what you're saying. Go ahead, Alice.
I would just say that the same argument could be turned around on Rockport, that it's a small amount of money, and we should keep in mind that there has been no history of Rockport taxpayers funding their system. Their system is paid by ratepayers, and they have been relentless in maintaining that approach. They charge, if you look at their budget, they take a portion of their town manager's salary, their finance director, their a few others, public works, and they assign that. They say, we know that they spend a certain amount of time on wastewater, and so that's going to get charged to the Rockport ratepayers. Whereas the difference with Camden is our rates have stayed lower because over many, many years, taxpayers have subsidized it. People that don't use the system. And we don't go through that exercise. We don't charge a portion of Audra's time to the ratepayers. We don't charge a portion of Dave St. Laurent now will be part of the wastewater budget, but we don't take Jody's time and charge that to the ratepayers. So that's how Camden taxpayers have worked to keep Camden wastewater rates down. Rockport has made a decision not to do that. And so I think that should be, kept in mind.
No, thank you.
Agreed. All right. Anybody else? Good discussion. Thank you very much, Rockport, for coming tonight. Item 8 on the agenda tonight is adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we don't have to have that executive session?
We're going to adjourn first.
Oh, I thought we moved into executive session. Fine, second.
Uh,
This is
I just-
stupid. It
I'm
doesn't
just
matter.
following the
Yeah,
agenda.
I'm
Just
fine.
here.
This is where I don't need to get
Okay,
hung up.
Can you second? Okay.
I did
Motion
second.
made
I
and
did,
seconded.
yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Yep. May I use the bathroom quickly?
I am too.
Okay.
Oh, I'll go.